Have you ever felt that nagging frustration? You hear the news, inflation is coming down. Yet, when you push your cart through the grocery store aisles or check your monthly bills, it feels like prices are still relentlessly climbing. This isn't just a feeling, it's a widespread economic paradox that leaves many of us scratching our heads. Today, we're going to unravel this mystery, explaining in clear, accessible language why your everyday experience often diverges so sharply from the official economic headlines. Prepare to gain a deeper understanding of the forces shaping your purchasing power. The disconnect between economic headlines and personal experience is a source of significant public frustration. When economists and policymakers announce that inflation is falling, a natural assumption forms in our minds. Prices should start to decrease, or at least stabilize. This expectation is deeply ingrained, yet it rarely aligns with the reality we face at the checkout counter or when reviewing our household budgets. The feeling that our money simply doesn't stretch as far as it used to persists, creating a sense of economic unease. This widespread misunderstanding stems from a crucial distinction in economic terminology. The language used to describe inflation can be incredibly misleading if not properly understood. We often conflate a slowing rate of price increases with an actual reversal of prices. This cognitive dissonance is not a flaw in your perception. It's a gap in how economic data is communicated versus how it's intuitively interpreted. By the end of our discussion, you'll possess the analytical tools to bridge this gap, understanding precisely why prices continue their upward trajectory even as the pace of their ascent moderates. To truly grasp the current economic landscape, we must first establish a precise definition of inflation. At its core, inflation is not a measure of how high prices are at any given moment. Instead, it quantifies the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is increasing over a specific period. Think of it as the speed of price changes, rather than the absolute level of prices themselves. A common analogy helps clarify this concept for students and the general public alike. Imagine a car traveling down a highway. If the car's speed decreases from 100 miles per hour to 60 miles per hour, it is still moving forward. The car hasn't stopped, nor has it started moving backward. It's simply advancing at a slower pace. Similarly, when we say inflation is falling, it means that prices are still increasing, but they are doing so at a reduced rate compared to before. The upward momentum of prices continues, albeit with less intensity. This fundamental distinction is critical for understanding why your grocery bill doesn't suddenly shrink when inflation figures improve. One of the most significant reasons prices feel persistently high, even with falling inflation, is what economists refer to as the stacking effect or the base effect. This concept illustrates how previous price increases accumulate over time, forming a new, higher baseline for all subsequent price adjustments. It's not about prices reversing. It's about new increases being added on top of already elevated levels. This cumulative impact is often overlooked in public discourse, but is central to our lived experience. Consider a practical example that resonates with every consumer. Let's say a basket of essential groceries cost $100 2 years ago. In the first year, inflation was high, perhaps 8%. This means that same basket of groceries now cost $108. Now imagine that in the second year, inflation falls significantly to 3%. This doesn't mean the price goes back down to $100 or even $105. Instead, the 3% increase is applied to the new base of $108. So, $108 multiplied by 1.03 equals approximately $111.24. The price has still gone up from $108 to $111.24, even though the rate of inflation has decreased. This compounding effect means that every percentage point of inflation, no matter how small, contributes to a permanently higher price level. For students learning about compound interest, this concept should feel familiar. The principle is similar. Each year's inflation builds upon the previous year's inflated prices, creating a staircase of increasing costs. This continuous upward movement, even if the steps become smaller, explains why the total cost of living remains elevated and why consumers feel the pinch long after peak inflation has passed. Beyond the stacking effect, another critical factor contributing to the feeling of economic strain is the typical lag between price increases and wage adjustments. While prices for goods and services can react relatively quickly to economic shifts, wages and salaries often adjust at a much slower pace. This disparity creates a significant erosion of purchasing power for individuals and households. It's a common complaint among the general public and a key area of analysis for economists studying household welfare. When inflation accelerates, the cost of living rises rapidly. However, many workers receive annual salary reviews, meaning their wages might only be adjusted once a year, if at all, to account for inflation. During periods of high inflation, this annual adjustment often proves insufficient to keep pace with the escalating costs of everyday necessities. Consequently, the real value of their income diminishes. Your nominal paycheck might look the same, but its ability to buy the same quantity of goods and services has decreased. This phenomenon is not an illusion. It's a tangible reduction in your economic well-being. This wage lag creates a persistent feeling of being behind, even when inflation moderates. Consumers find themselves needing to spend a larger proportion of their income on essentials, leaving less disposable income for savings, investments, or discretionary spending. For economists, understanding this lag is crucial for analyzing consumer confidence and overall economic stability. For the average person, it simply means their money doesn't stretch as far as it used to, leading to genuine financial stress and a sense of frustration that official inflation numbers don't seem to capture their reality. Another fundamental economic principle at play is price stickiness. This refers to the phenomenon where, once prices for goods and services have increased, businesses are often very reluctant to lower them, even if their input costs begin to stabilize or decline. This behavior is a key reason why the higher price levels established during inflationary periods tend to persist. It's a concept that economists study closely to understand market dynamics and consumer behavior. There are several reasons for this stickiness. Firstly, businesses incur various menu costs associated with changing prices, such as reprinting labels, updating digital systems, and communicating new prices to customers. These costs, though seemingly small individually, can add up. Secondly, businesses are wary of signaling weakness or starting a price war by being the first to lower prices. They prefer to maintain profit margins established during higher cost periods. Thirdly, many of the underlying costs that drove prices up in the first place, such as labor wages, rent, and transportation infrastructure, are themselves sticky downwards. Once wages are raised, it's extremely difficult for businesses to reduce them. Similarly, commercial rents and long-term contracts for supplies rarely decrease. Therefore, even if the rate of inflation falls, meaning the pace of cost increases slows, the absolute level of those costs remains elevated. This means businesses have little incentive or ability to roll back prices to pre-inflationary levels. For consumers, this translates into a permanent upward shift in the cost of many goods and services. The price tag you see today, even if it's not increasing as rapidly as last year, is likely to remain at that elevated level for the foreseeable future, solidifying the higher cost of living. The public discourse around inflation often suffers from a critical misunderstanding, the conflation of falling inflation with falling prices. It's essential to clarify this distinction to avoid confusion and accurately interpret economic news. When economists report that inflation is falling, they are indicating a deceleration in the rate of price increases, not a reversal. Prices are still moving upwards, just at a gentler slope. This nuance is frequently lost in headlines and casual conversation, leading to widespread misinterpretations. The actual phenomenon of broadly falling prices is known as deflation. Deflation is a sustained decrease in the general price level of goods and services, resulting in an increase in the purchasing power of currency. While it might sound appealing to consumers at first glance, deflation is generally considered a far more dangerous economic condition than inflation. It often signals severe economic distress, such as a sharp decline in demand, widespread unemployment, and a reluctance for businesses to invest. Consumers tend to postpone purchases, anticipating even lower prices, which further stifles economic activity. Historically, periods of significant deflation have been associated with economic depressions, like the Great Depression of the 1930s. Therefore, central banks and governments actively work to avoid deflation, often targeting a low, stable rate of inflation, for example 2%, as a sign of a healthy, growing economy. Understanding this distinction is crucial for students of economics and the general public alike. Falling inflation is a sign that the economy is cooling down from overheating, while deflation is a red flag indicating a potential economic crisis. The current situation, where inflation is falling but prices remain high, is a far cry from the perils of deflation. Understanding the true nature of inflation doesn't magically reduce your grocery bill or lower your rent. However, It provides invaluable clarity, helping you reconcile your personal financial experience with the often confusing economic headlines. The frustration many feel stems directly from the gap between the expectation that falling inflation means falling prices, and the reality that prices continue to climb, albeit more slowly. This knowledge empowers you to interpret economic news more accurately and make more informed personal financial decisions. When inflation slows, it signifies that the intense upward pressure on prices is easing. This is a positive development, as it means your purchasing power is no longer eroding at an alarming rate. However, the higher price level established during the peak inflationary period remains the new normal. Your money still buys less than it did before the inflationary surge, but the rate at which it's losing value has decreased. This distinction is crucial for managing expectations and planning your finances. It means adapting to a new cost structure rather than waiting for a return to old prices. For students, this analysis provides a practical application of economic theory. For consumers, it validates their lived experience and offers a framework for understanding why their budgets feel tighter. For economists, it underscores the importance of clear communication and addressing public perception. By recognizing that prices have stacked, that wages often lag, and that inflation measures speed rather than absolute levels, you gain a more nuanced and accurate perspective on the economic forces impacting your daily life. This understanding is the first step toward navigating our complex economic world with greater confidence. Inflation can feel like an abstract, confusing force, largely because the language used to describe it is often imprecise or misinterpreted. But as we've explored today, once you understand the fundamental concepts that inflation measures the rate of price increases, not the absolute price level, that past increases stack, and that prices are sticky downwards, the behavior of prices makes a lot more sense. This clarity is not just academic, it's a powerful tool for navigating your personal finances and understanding the broader economic landscape. Don't let economic jargon obscure your understanding of your own financial reality. Empower yourself with knowledge. If you found this explanation helpful, please share it with others who might be grappling with similar questions. Subscribe to our channel for more insights into the economic forces shaping our world. In our next video, we'll delve deeper into how inflation is actually measured, exploring the various indices and methodologies that economists use, and why even these measurements can sometimes feel disconnected from our everyday lives. Take action now. What's one specific price increase you've noticed recently that made you feel the inflation paradox? Share your experience in the comments below. Your insights help us all understand the real-world impact of these economic trends. Let's continue this conversation and build a more economically literate community together.